137. While you're turning there, why don't we go to the Lord in word of prayer to start off? Father in heaven, we bow in your presence. We are grateful for this day that you've provided for us. We thank you for the love and compassion that you show upon us each and every day of our lives. And Father, even though we many times fail you, you're still there. And you still guide us. You still convict us. You're still present with us. So Father, we pray that this morning that your presence might be felt here today. That as we open our hearts to you, that you would move in and convict us where we need to be convicted. And Heavenly Father, if there would be something in our lives that just is not quite what it needs to be, we pray, Heavenly Father, you convict us of that also. We especially pray for anybody that might be here this morning that does not know Jesus Christ as their own personal Savior. We pray that your Spirit might move in amongst them and show unto them the great need in which they have while they have this opportunity in this time. Father, we are so grateful that you love us the way that you do. And as the song just said, that you are preparing a place for us in heaven. That one day, when we leave this world, we know that we'll be in your presence and we'll be with you. Forgive me, Lord, where I have failed you. Help me that I might present your word in ways to be pleasing in your sight, that you might receive all the honor and glory, for you are worthy. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Telling Brother Scott after his lesson this morning that many of the things that we were going to talk about today are going to be a lot right along the lines of what was in his lesson. The time period in which you would find this psalm would probably be equal with the book of Obadiah that he talked about. And that is the fact that the children of Israel were going to be taken away captive to Babylon. And not only was Babylon instrumental in bringing them there, but so was the Edomites, who cheered them on, if so to speak. And so we're going to deal with all that kind of stuff, but I just find it unique sometimes that way that God works. That God specifically has a message for us today, and that message can be repeated. Sometimes people hate repeat. This is like they talk about with the songs. That they hate the repeating of this or that throughout the song. But sometimes I think it needs to be repeated in order for it to actually sink within inside of our hearts. That we get it here on the outside, and it stays here for a while. And then all of a sudden, it gets a little bit closer. And then all of a sudden, when we're really there, it enters in and we got it. That God has moved his message into our hearts. And by moving it into our hearts, we now clearly understand what it is that he wants from us. Unfortunately, we see that Jonah didn't get it, right? But still the same. This thing right here is going to bug me throughout the service. That God used Jonah to turn around Nineveh. No matter how off Jonah was to getting the message, for himself, he was able to deliver the message, and God was able to convict Ninevites, and they turned, they repented. So I tell you today that no matter how weak I might be in the presentation of God's Word will go forth, and it will accomplish that which God has intended for it to accomplish. And if you'll open your heart to him today, that God will move into your heart and show unto you just how much he loves you, just how much he cares for you. And all he wants is the very best for you. So let God in. Let God have his way today. Captive to their sorrows. Psalm 137 verse 1, it says, by the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept when we remembered Zion. And if you go on into verse 2, he says, we hanged our hearts upon the willows in the midst thereof. In little groups, you kind of get the picture that is being displayed before you at this point in time. As they are being led away captive, note two things. One, that when Babylon took them, they left some behind. And the ones that they left behind were considered to be the weaker of all the people. So like Jeremiah. Jeremiah was left in a prison. And I don't know when he got out, how he got out, but when we read the book of Lamentations or the book of Jeremiah, note that Jeremiah is there. That he was left behind while the rest were being taken away captive. Two, note that as they're walking along, there's only a very few that actually make it to Babylon. The rest of them, as he talks about here, they would sit down by the river. And they'd be in their clusters, their groups of people. And so they would be setting up camp there. They would become slaves, and that would be their home, their refuge, if you will. That'd be the place in which they would be held captive. I think it's also important to note that in all of what we look at, that there's something that is behind this, that is driving this to a point of where it needs to be. But one, misery loves company. If you see them walking along and they're sitting down by the riverside and they're hanging their harps up in the tree, what you know is that they're miserable. They're not happy sojourners. They're not those that are going forth singing their song of redemption and all that. They're going and they're upset. They're saddened. They're confused and frustrated that this could have ever happened to them. And I think we probably all have gotten into that place in life where all of a sudden things are not necessarily as wonderful as we wanted them to be. That things are less than perfect. But here's where we're at. We're in our own misery. We're in our own position. We're trying to make the very best out of what it is that we have been given. The Israelites were not taken away just as hostages, but they were banished from their land. There's the hand of God that is absolutely 100% behind everything that has taken place. Because if God didn't want this to happen to them, then God could have stopped it from happening. But God, in His sovereignty, moves against His people, or allows Babylon to move against His people, because they had gotten to a point that they were not turning around. They were continuing to worship their idols. They were allowing other things into their life to affect them to the point where they were no longer of any value or use to God the way that they were. Now, that might sound harsh. But again, we might all have been there from time to time. Where we get so full of ourselves and so full of our own ways, so full of our own ideas, that we are found in a position where we are of no use to God in that fashion. Yeah, can He use us? Yeah, He can. He used the Israelites right here. As he is walking them out and moving them on and taking them to a place where they do not want to go. They are a lesson to the next generation that this is not something that God is pleased with. God is sovereign, and God alone calls the shots. I know. See, I get it, because we live in a country that has gone against God, right? And we seem to be doing as we please. But one day, there will be a reckoning. And I was reminded in my own mind of Mama from Waterboy, who says, "Chickens are coming to roost, Bobby Boucher." The chickens will one day come to roost, you know? And we will, it's not as if we're getting away with anything at this moment in time. The truth is one of these days it'll all catch up with us, and we will realize that God is sovereign. That He and He alone deserves the praise and the honor and the glory. That we are His creation, and He can move us at will to do that which He would have us to do. And if we refuse to do it, then we will answer for our own doing. Ezekiel 33, verse 28 says this. It says, "For I will lay the land most desolate, and the pomp of her strength shall cease, and the mountains of Israel shall be desolate, that none shall pass through. Then shall they know that I am the Lord, when I have laid the land most desolate because of all their abominations which they have committed. Then they will know." You see, we can act as if God is not real. You know, we can be all behind the idea of aborting children and think nothing of it, right? But one of these days, we will answer to God, and then we will know He is God. And don't mistake, there is a reality-based check thing here for me every single day that I live. When I begin to think about the things that have happened, you know, in my life, the way that things have kind of fallen out, and I think to myself, God, is this all because of my doing? Is this because I refused certain things and I allowed certain things? Is this because of the things in which I have done, and now I am answering for the life in which I have lived? This thought goes through me all the time. And I know that as a pastor, one who is doing his very best to try to lead out before the church, that I will answer to God for the things in which I have done. I know that. I know that for certain. And so I don't do things in a manner which is flippant, where I don't consider the thing that is out there and the person who I'm going to have to answer to. I know that very well. And my desire is really to be able to stand before the Lord and for the Lord to be able to say to me, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Now enter into the joys of my rest. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to be able to experience. And to be reluctant to follow the Lord, just like Jonah was reluctant to follow the Lord and go in an opposite direction, would be consequential to me. Because it's not about life in itself. It's not about the piano. It's not about the guitar. It's not about the singers. It's not about the types of songs. It's about the heart. It's about our hearts. Are our hearts in the right place? Because that's what God is really judging. He's not judging our actions necessarily, but our hearts, and our hearts will lead out before our actions. Are we doing what God would have us to do? Destruction would certainly come to rest upon the children of Israel because of the actions in which they took, but it's not just their actions. Their heart was so far away from God. And because their heart was so far away from God, God had to move them and show unto them once again that they were in the place where they were at because He brought them there. And He could easily take them away from that place, and so He did. He would one day bring them back. The reality says that there was many that had died over in Israel that did not know the joys of Jerusalem. It just didn't. They never got to experience it because of those that were before them. They did not respect what it was that God had provided them. In Psalm 137, verse 3, he says, For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion. For how shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? They required of us mirth and a song. The idea is that they not only wanted them to sing a song of Zion, they wanted them to be happy about it. They wanted them to be joyful about it. They wanted them to sing with rejoicing and merriment. They were actually taking the sadness that the Israelites had at the removal that God had brought them to from the land that was theirs. And they said, now sing us a song. And be happy. Rejoice. Sing us one of those songs you used to sing before. They were adding upon their affliction more affliction. They were piling it up as much as they possibly could. Lamentations, again, written by Jeremiah, who still left in Jerusalem, says, Jerusalem remembered in the days of her affliction and of her miseries all her pleasant things that she had in the days of old, when her people fell into the land of the enemy, and none did help her. The adversary saw her and did mock at her Sabbaths. And at this point, we would see the Edomites come in, as they would be rallying the troops of the Babylonians who come up against the children of Israel, and encouraging them, do what needs to be done, take them at will, exact punishment upon them, and tear down their walls. One of the things I think I most am happy when I read this, because this is a beautiful psalm. It just has a lot of heavy stuff in it. But it reminds me, once again, that no matter what you and I will go through, Jesus has already gone through it for us. He's already been down that trail. He's already walked that path. He's already faced that temptation. He's already taken that blow. So no matter what it is that you might go through, Jesus has already been there. And He is able then to minister to you in your heart and to your life the things that might be needed during that period of time. Because even though He's gone through it, He went through it without sin. Our problem is that we are sinful creatures. And because of that, we many times go through things because of our own doings. But Jesus went through it for us. In Matthew, the 27th chapter, verse 27, the scripture says, Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered unto him the whole band of soldiers. And they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it upon his head, and a reed in his right hand. And they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! And they spit upon him, and took the reed and smote him in the head. As if it weren't bad enough the things that Jesus had gone through the night before, being judged by the Sanhedrin, being found guilty by their judgment, beat upon, spit upon, at that point in time, even the hair on his face being ripped out. If that wasn't bad enough, having to go from one place to the next place and be rejudged again, once he is found guilty, once the sentence passed, once they have made a decision that what they're going to do is take him to the cross and hang him there and put him to death, the soldiers came along. And the soldiers mocked him. And the soldiers beat upon him. The soldiers put a crown of thorns upon his head and dug it into his skull. The soldiers, they falsely bowed before him and called him King of the Jews. You see, they added upon his affliction more affliction, as if he hadn't already done enough. And I know that for you in your life, you probably go through times like that too, where, one thing goes bad and you say, okay, I'll deal with that. And then the next thing goes bad and you got to deal with that. And it just continues to keep piling on to the point in time where you might begin to question and say, God, I don't know that I can endure it much more. Is this all happening because of something I need to correct? Is there something in my life that is causing this to happen, this pain, this anguish? And we pray the Lord, remove this from us, if you will, only to have it continue on, the affliction. We live in a very cruel world. And because the world is the way it is, it just kind of dumps. And it never stops. And it never relents. It never gives up. It just continues to pour it upon us. But the Lord's been there. And He knows how to help us. He knows how to strengthen us. He knows how to comfort us. If we would just allow Him. It's time we find that there are scoffers who continue to scoff at the children of Israel. And as we live our lives, the Scriptures tell us the scoffers will mount up as time goes by. It tells us in 2 Peter, the 3rd chapter, verse 3, knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers. And I want you to pay attention to this pretty closely, because the honest truth is, sometimes scoffers don't have to talk. Sometimes they just live. You live amongst scoffers all the time. They're the people who are hooping it up. They don't think anything about God. They don't care about God. They don't know God. And they live as if there is no God. So they scoff by their walk. That's what he says. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lust. And then he goes on to say, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. They live their lives as if, there's no God whatsoever, no Creator who created us all. There's no one, no divinity that we have to ever answer to. That we are free to do as we choose to do and live the life in which we desire to live. They live after their own lust. Therefore, we find children being brought in, or women having sexual encounters with men and out of marriage. And then what is it to just abort the child then, right? So this is the way we are. This is the people that we have become. We are people who live life as if there is no consequences to the things in which we do. The truth is, there will be consequences. In Psalm 137, we find that the Lord will take up the cause of His people. If we will be faithful to Him, He promises to be faithful to us. So we turn our purpose, we turn our will, we turn our whole being to God, and say, God, take us and use us as you will. Do with us as you would please. Help us to be strong. Help us to continue in faith and always to believe in you. Help us not to try to take it away and bring it back to ourselves, but to leave it in your hands and let you do with it as you please. And so in Psalm 137, verse 7 says, Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom, in the day of Jerusalem, who said, Raise it, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth the little ones against the stones. A person who cannot find a way to give mercy will not receive mercy, because they will have to answer to God at a time to come. The thing which he is saying unto them here, they cried out. They said, Bring it down to the ground. Bring it down to the ground. That's what the raise means, is to bring it down to the ground. Tear the walls down and bring it all the way down. And the Edomites were there, cheering it on. They were the ones with the voice that was saying, Bring it down. Bring it down. And this was the condition in which the children of Israel left Jerusalem. They left it in shambles. Their last memory of it would be that it was torn down to the ground. That it was no longer. And this is why Jeremiah says in Lamentations, he says, we look back with fondness at what it used to be. But it is no longer that anymore. It's been torn down. It's been brought to shambles. It's become a wreck. But God says, one day, He will stand for His people, and the world will have to answer to Him. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Isaiah 63, verse 4 says, For the day of vengeance is in mine heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. I will bring him back. I will bring him out. See, there's that last song that we sang. I am who you say I am. Look, what do they say? You're captives, you're hostages, you are forgotten, that you are not loved, you are not cared for. But God says, You're my redeemed. I will redeem you. I will bring you forth. I will bring you out. Lastly, while they were as captives, they had this call within inside of themselves to say, Let us not forget. Let us not forget who it is that we serve. Let us not forget who it is that brought us out. Let us not forget what it used to be like when praise and honor went to our God and God blessed our land. God blessed us as His people. Let us not forget the day in which the Lord saved our souls. Let us not forget. Let us remember. Let us continue to remind ourselves of that which God has done for us in our lives. While in captive, let us not forget. Verse 5, it says, If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. He says, what you need is you need a heart that is affected to remember what it was that God once was to you in your life. Before you allowed other things to infiltrate within inside of you and you became this wreck. Remember what it was that you were like. See, you know how important that is? Man, I'm telling you. I've been struggling with this very thing. You know when the Lord first called me to the ministry? There was no stopping. I was youthful, I was young, I was vibrant, I was ready to go and change the world. Right? Well, time has beaten me down a little bit. I don't expect change too much. I just need change here. If I get change here, I'm going to be a pretty happy guy. Lord, bring back revival into my life so that I am as I once was. That I knew that nothing could stop me because you were with me. And if God be for us, who can be against us? Right? That if we could remember what it once was like when we were on fire for God, and say, God, bring me back to that place so that I might be useful to you and that I might be a benefit to people. Forgive me for allowing myself to become so cold and indifferent. Forgive me for being the person that I have become, that I'm complacent and I'm just living one day at a time, just trying to get by. Forgive me for being that. And help me to be the person that knows and believes and trusts that you can because you have promised. Can I just have the faith of a mustard seed just for a moment? So that mountains can be moved. Problems can be removed out of our life, and we can begin to be more effective for the Lord, for His kingdom here in this place. So here's my last point. Let us love God once more. Let us just put ourselves to the side. Let us empty ourselves of our own selves and things that we want and the things in which we desire. Let us love God once more. Let us love Him with a full heart. And love Him for He deserves to be loved. See, we always basking in the favor and grace of God's love towards us, right? It's time to return to love. We love so many things in this world. But what we should love the most is our Lord and Savior. To love Him with a full heart. For love and country. Right? Because the moment in time that we start to love God the way that God deserves to be loved, He'll change our situations around us. He could change our country if God's people would just love Him one more time. Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. Love God. Let it rise from the hearts of God's people today. Let everybody know that the love of God is in this place. Let's go to the Lord in a word of prayer.